I
Just
could get you the American dream on 85K.
I know the lengths that you go to in order to save money, and you sum that up in can-do attitude. That is
What
not can.
you want a can't do attitude over here, Doogles?
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Hello, Skippy.
What's up?
How are you?
Good. How about you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Just celebrating in this part of the world.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Tell you about the celebrating?
Mm-hmm.
Just everything hitting all-time highs, man. Everything. One of the things I enjoyed the most was I think it was a Wall Street Journal headline yesterday or sometime this week that was something like the market catapults off the back of AI mania to all-time highs. And the S&P 500 was up like 0.03% that day. And so, yes, like it technically did go to all-time highs, but there was some aggressive language being used about it.
Starting to feel the Wall Street Journal's layoffs. Man, that they've
Yep.
been writing like their articles this week have been like so and so said X on Twitter.
You can't lay off AI.
Not the quality journalism that I'm used to. I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, lo siento. However, let's just start with a little fishbowl reach. I'm going to stay on the theme of all-time highs and talk about Japan. Japan,
All time highs.
all-time highs. The Nikkei 225, the Dos Dos Cinco, as they call it in Japan, is hitting all-time highs. And this has been long awaited. I'm talking long awaited. When was the last time we saw these kinds of digits over in Japan?
Oh, something like 34 years ago.
Yeah. 1989, man.
For all the Cape ratio haters out there, cyclically adjusted price to earnings ratios, it went to 44 and a half. I mean, the signs were there that what was happening 34 years ago was not exactly fundamentally based.
No, but yeah, okay, yes. Yes, true. However, it's wild when you think about, because you talk about all the time. You say when there are statements thrown around, like, well, the market always comes back, that a lot of times that's focused, or most times, or maybe all times, that's focused around looking at the US. And you have these other stock markets that sometimes they go down, they're just down. Or you have a situation like this where the market went down and didn't come back for 34 years, at least to that same level. There was a piece that I enjoyed this week from the Wall Street Journal, going back to the Wall Street Journal, but this was better than that last journalism that we were talking about. And it talks about this stockbroker and how he's been waiting 34 years for the market to boom. His name was Hiroyuki Kikuchi, and I'm going to hit on a few points here from this article. So one, it starts off by saying the last time Japanese stocks were at these levels, Kikuchi celebrated his brokerage's 40th anniversary at a luxury hotel and hired a composer and band for more than $100,000 to create a ballad titled Never Say Can't. At that point in time, he was saying, we're going to hit 50,000. We're going to hit 60,000, right? It was one of those, like, I can just picture Leonardo DiCaprio doing his little jig in The Wolf of Wall Street, right? Just saying, this will never end. This will never end. But it ended. They'd also, one other point from this, it was saying at the time, there were companies that were pouring money into stocks. They were making more from stocks than they were from their core, which is another sign, right? When your core business is, and you're not an investment firm, and your core business is not spitting out as much as stocks. In fact, there were brokers that were guaranteeing 7% returns. Like, just give us your money, guaranteed. We will give you that amount of money. This was a silly dilly little time back then, but you get caught up in euphoria. As you were saying, I'm not going to say this time is different, but it's not the crazy, right, Cape ratios we were talking about then. There are no, and I quote, there are no illusions about Japan dominating the global economy. this time, which was at the back of the time, the largest companies in the world were Japanese.
I didn't think you were going to make me go here. The only illusions happening right now are that the U.S. tech sector is the most dominant force to ever be reckoned with and will never face a downturn. I mean, I didn't really want to go to the parallels here. I wasn't even thinking we'd talk about this today, but the way you framed it, what was happening 34 years ago in Japan is like the Japanese tech sector, including companies like Sony, were just thought to be so dominant that all of the world's money was headed there and saying this is the hot thing. Here's your guaranteed returns. There's some of that going on with US tech right now, man.
See, this is where you have your own illusions. Because we got companies that are increasing their revenues by 3x every year. As we talked about last week, we got companies. It's a silent S. We got, this week, NVIDIA, after its 16% gain on Thursday, it had the single largest market cap increase by aggregate dollar value in history. It was just, I don't know, like a month ago when Meta did the same thing.
Yeah,
but now,
I was going to say.
So this is the sign. This is what you're talking about. I was just joshing you.
Meta
this is what you're talking
about. That record. Just set that record 3 weeks ago. And then NVIDIA in one day went up more than AMD, their largest competitor. Well, one of their largest. I mean,
yeah.
The results on this, I doubt we have many listeners that like sports gambling on the show because gambling is not investing. But I think the gamblers can have more fun with NVIDIA right now than you can have in any sporting event because this thing is just wild. For what? Now, 4 straight quarters, basically, and maybe it's only 3. Basically, their results have been so unbelievable that 3 months ago, I was wondering if they are on steroids, the equivalent of like Mark McGwire setting home run records, like basically cooking the books. These results are unbelievable.
Unbelievable. They are I don't know what to do when I look at NVIDIA's quarterly earnings. Like it's mind-blowing. It's a mind-blowing thing. It's not sustainable. And I don't think Jensen does not believe it's sustainable. Now, the things he's saying, because he's CEO of this organization, is this is the start of a new inflection point, right? But
he's also selling stock for what it's worth. But so did we read? Let's just read the 3 bullet points. Record quarterly revenue of 22.1 billion, up 22% from Q3 and up 265% from a year ago. Record quarterly data center revenue of 18.4 billion, up 27% from Q3 and 409% from a year ago. Things are just going up hundreds of a percent each year.
It's got to be wild when you say, okay, so NVIDIA, I can't remember, but it's something like, I don't know, 27, 28 years old or something like that as a company. Mm-hmm. Say, during the first 27 years, we built this enterprise that is world-renowned and created billions of dollars in revenue. How about this quarter? We do 20. How about how I get excited. How about
Doogles
this
is
quarter?
So fired up, he's throwing his mic over there.
How about this quarter? We do what we did for the last 27 years, but just right now. Like, let's just do that.
Like in
right
a quarter.
It's buck wild. Can I step back to Japan for a moment?
We'll get there. But to tie up NVIDIA, there's rumors. I don't know if these are true, but sometimes rumors are more fun than truth. That some folks at Sequoia who did the original like Series A have never sold their stock. Can you imagine the return if that's true?
No.
It's literally funny money because
it's like the people that originally wrote $25,000 checks for Uber when Uber was still private, but it's wild. All right, step back to Japan. To put this 34 years into something maybe slightly more tangible, because I thought this was really interesting, is this Wall Street Journal piece also touched on how the Bank of Japan after this point kept interest rates at around 0 for an entire generation. For a generation. So when we talk about 0% interest rates and what that's done for the U.S. economy over the last 10 years, like just imagine that for a whole generation. And so what that's led to is the broker that we were talking about in this piece, Hiroyuki, he now has passed on. So his father originally ran the brokerage. His father passed the brokerage to him. He now has passed the brokerage on to his son. And what his son was saying is that what's happening now is no one knows. Like no one's ever seen it, but his dad has seen it. He's like, this is, and I quote, my dad is a guy who knows that market where rates are rising, stocks are rising. He's one of the few surviving executives who has experienced that.
This is great. I love this point because effectively, if you look at the graph here for 34 years, it's pretty symmetrical. Like it goes down for 15, 16 years, kind of. And then it slowly, basically it does very little for the middle 20. But
yep.
Just recently, it's starting to ramp up in what looks like an exponential curve. But that insight is incredible. Like you have to be whatever 60 to 80 years old to even know what it's like, probably older, probably 70 to 90 years old to even know what it's like to be in a market of all-time highs.
Yeah. And here in the US, the market goes down for a week and people are like, the world might end. Like we don't understand. And then it goes up for a week and we're like, good times forever. Right? It's we don't understand how to just operate in a world that isn't on extremes.
Well, what's going to happen is at some point we'll have a prolonged downturn and people will be talking about, I don't know anyone that was in the market in 2008, and we'll have the reverse of this.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually,
that's true.
We won't, right? American tech is going to go on forever and everything's perfect and there's nothing to worry about. And
I mean, all we need is about 5 years and NVIDIA will be a $7 trillion revenue company.
Oh, no, 10. Come on. Oh, 7 trillion revenue. That's not
revenue. I'm talking about 3x every year.
What's going to happen is the AI that NVIDIA creates actually will start making its own chips and then selling those own chips, but all under the company umbrella of NVIDIA. So it could be $100 trillion in revenue.
Jensen becomes a cyborg. Sam Altman becomes a cyborg. And then they just, he puts himself into his oven. All right. What you got? What you got in the bowl?
We're off the rails. I found this really interesting. I won't give all the caveats of I haven't done all the fact checking, but Investopedia came out with an infographic that says the American dream now costs $3.4 million.
Okay.
And I expected to immediately look through this and have all sorts of issues with the numbers, but they look kind of right. So I'm going to go step by step of what they define as the American dream and give you some values associated with that. And apparently adds up to 3.4 million. Let's just discuss. First thing, average cost of a wedding and engagement ring, $36,000. Seems on the high side. I can live with it. Average cost of a home with mortgage interest, they roughly say $800K. I mean, that is on the cheaper side based on where we live. But I can do it for your average home.
Yep.
This one cracks me up. And it's true, but it cracks me up. It's not true for me, Doogles. It's not true for value investors out there. Lifetime car purchases total almost $300K. Come on, more like $300 where I live. I mean, buy that used Corolla, people. I'm exaggerating a little, but again, believe it, right? You buy, I don't know, over the course of your lifetime, 4 $50,000 cars and pay some interest, or it's more than 4 probably because it's one for you and one for your wife, and then you get the minivan when you have the kids and everything else. This is a little pedantic, but out-of-pocket cost for 2 baby deliveries in the hospital, they say $6K. Average cost of raising 2 children to the age 18 is almost $600,000. Recent data I've seen says that's true. Any surprises for you yet, Doogles? So basically, you have a house, some cars, and you've got your kids to 18.
Nothing seems, to what you're saying, nothing seems wildly off. Maybe different than what my thought process would be, but not wildly off.
All right, so this is where this is uniquely American. That they say that you'll spend almost $900,000 on family health insurance. This is premiums and insurance costs. Certainly seems on the high side, but we are the most expensive and worst. How do I say it? the worst healthcare coverage per cost of any place in the world by significant margin. So I wouldn't really quibble with this one either.
Yep. Makes sense.
That makes me sad more than anything else. I mean,
Yeah.
you to have the American dream, think if you could put $1 million somewhere else. But
So I mean,
that's
I'm rounding a good amount, but that's like a third of the total cost they're talking about.
Absolutely.
I mean, not quite. It's like,
I mean, isn't that sad though?
Yeah.
And the fact that you and I both aren't immediately like, no, that's insane. We're kind of like,
no, yeah,
that's it. we Americans are spoiled. Let's put it that way. $67,000 is the average lifetime cost for pet care.
It's what's interesting. Okay, sorry, I know you have a couple more to go. What they chose to include in here is this was the first one where the number I don't really know. I don't know either way, but I just went you chose pet care versus there are other categories they could have chosen.
This one and the cost to deliver babies in the hospital is like, really? That's what you chose to as important?
Yes, exactly.
Now this one I want to quibble with the cost too, but I've had some large vet bills recently, and over a lifetime, gosh,
Yeah.
you probably get there. Average cost of tuition, again, for your 2 children in the so-called American dream, $42,000 a year, basically. Unfortunately, that's reasonable and true. And then $700K to retire. On this show, we would likely tell you need more than that, but I think that is the average.
Yep.
And average cost of a funeral is $8,000. It adds up. $3.4 million. There you go.
So the engagement ring is over 4 times as much as the funeral. That shows you what we value. That shows you what we value.
And wedding.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Never mind.
And I would argue it's better to spend money when people are alive celebrating them than it is to celebrate them after their death, if that makes any sense.
Well, yeah, when I'd forgotten that the wedding was included. So I was thinking about the ring itself. Yeah, there you go. So ignore, let's just say the categories are right, the numbers are right.
Yeah.
If we just say that, this comes out to over imagine a 50-year period in which you're spending this money. It comes out to about $68,000, I think, I ran some quick math, a year that you're spending. I know everything wouldn't be over that period of time, but like roughly,
okay.
Doesn't seem wild. So pre-tax, you're talking about $100,000 in salary, roughly, is what it costs to have the American dream. Do you know what the median income is in the U.S.?
Median household income or median individual
household
income?
I believe household is what I have. Let's just imagine it's household. I'm gonna give you a number, but I think it's household.
I mean, that's important. I'm gonna say it's household because typically you have 2 earners and 85,000.
You're not too far off. About $78,000.
Okay.
I see another one that's 75, but we could say like mid-70s, roughly. So if you take that into consideration, so what we're saying is that the American dream income that you'd need is 100. Median in the US is about 75. The feeling, and for an individual, the number I had in my head must be individual because I just Googled that, is 58. So I know that people work part-time and whatnot. So the feeling around the American dream no longer existing, there's a lot of other factors going into it, but if you just take this like simple view of it, it starts to make sense. When you feel the day-to-day, the year-to-year of it, people are not able to get like the things that are sitting in those categories. I can't throw a $36,000 wedding. I can't do it, right? And when you see that's what that costs, I can't do it. That's what that costs. I can't do it. I need $700,000 for retirement. I have $0 in my retirement account, right? When you start to see these things, it also gets in the way of people being able to achieve it. I'm taking this to a new level. Sorry.
No, I kind of like this though. So let's put on we need a fake name for Dave Ramsey that actually gives good financial advice. Let's put on that little hat. We need
Gordon
to come
Ramsay.
up with no, a name as different as possible. Anyway, let's put on the Skippy and Doogles hat here and help to solve that problem, Doogles. If you have maybe 80K a year and you need 100 to do these, what I think there's some extravagant pieces in this so-called American dream.
Yep.
That, can easily cut back on the cost of a wedding and an engagement ring. can easily cut back on your lifetime car purchases. I would hope with a little can-do attitude, you could cut that insurance premium in half. High yield savings account, other things. Like, come on. There's wiggle room here. I could get you the American dream on 85K.
I know some of the things that you do, the lengths that you go to in order to save money, and you sum that up in can-do attitude.
What you want a can't do attitude over here, Doogles? I guess I won't turn this into my like personal garage sale on how to make all the numbers work, but I still think it's. Let me say it this way: your general tone of like, oh well, so the American dream doesn't exist anymore because you need 100K and the household income is less. I just want to say that's not entirely it. Some of it is, how am I going to make this work? Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I fully agree with you. What I was saying was the reason that people feel like the American dream doesn't exist, but it gets exactly to your point, is because I think there are a lot of people overgeneralizing here, but I think a lot of people will say, this is what I need to spend on X. All right, so I'm going to spend it. We were just talking about was it a week or two ago? We were talking about how friendships over time, the financials between friends can diverge. And it's like, okay, well, they're going on this trip to the Bahamas. That's how much it costs. I'm going to pay it.
Yep.
But where America, ignoring all the social and which is really important, like side of America, but let's just go into like the heart of what makes the American dream is some version of what can I do with what I have?
Yes.
Not some view in this is how much a thing costs, but what can I do with what I have? And that's where budgeting effectively comes in, is I can't spend that $100 on this. Let me find it for $7, the equivalent for it. There was when I was getting into the corporate world, my boss at the time was saying to me, he goes, all right, we need to up your wardrobe game. Now, you would know I've now come back to my old wardrobe game.
You've brought it back lower than ever.
Yeah.
Right.
But he what he was basically saying was, he was like, the first folks that are going to meet you are going to judge you by your cover. Right. That's what's going to happen. So he hired somebody for me to take me to like all these fancy shops to go and like put on all the fancy stuff. And she basically showed me like, this is what you can look like. Now let's go to the stores you can afford and find the same things. Like that was the way. Brilliant. Yeah, that was the way we kind of mapped out the stuff that I should buy, and then went to like the thrift shop and we're like, okay, now how do we put that same thing together? And that's it's a direct example, but you can think about that in other ways. What are the attributes of this thing that I feel like I want or I need, and how can I find those same attributes at Dollar Tree or Dollar General if you really know what's good for you?
Boo. Doogles is a stockholder. Boo. I'll try to stay off my soapbox, but you said something there. I didn't think we were going to talk about this in any way, shape, or form. You said something there that's so important, which is along the lines of like, part of the American dream is kind of a can-do attitude, or making the best of my current situation with my current means. Let's not get lost in just throwing numbers around and being like, I can't afford that. Life sucks. Let's actually tilt our frame of reference and our frame of like our mindset here to say, yeah, but if I have 85,000 in my household, like, look at all the things I can do, and look at all the opportunities where other Americans spend money in ways that are completely frivolous. And like, my quality of life can be just as good.
Yeah.
Even if I make a little less.
Or better.
Probably better.
Or better.
Honestly, probably better.
Yeah. Psychologically, it can also be better. Although it's hard to get to for some folks.
Yeah.
I like that convo. Thanks for bringing that up. I like that convo.
Can I ask you this question? It's kind of related, but you sent me a 25-page research article on called "Nobody Ever Gets Credit for Fixing Problems That Never Happened." What's going on with this, Doogles? Give me the breakdown.
Are you asking why I sent it to you, or
well, I mean,
what's in the piece?
The thing with hosting a podcast with Doogles is sometimes you're going to get like a 160-page research paper. Sometimes it's only going to be 30 pages. Like, and you never know how in depth, how much research you need to do on these things in advance. What piqued your interest about this guy?
So one was, I think the title is fascinating and right. There
You're
are certain
absolutely
things,
right.
and
Yeah.
then I'll touch on a little bit of the paper itself. There are certain activities, certain jobs, I'll say, where if it's done well, no one even knows that it happened. And if it's not done well, like you're railed into. Like that is the expectation is set such that the thing is done. And I think we can all probably think of examples of things like this, but it's kind of like oh, here's one that will hit home for folks. On Monday or Tuesday in your average organization, payroll is sent into the payroll organization, and then on Friday you get your paycheck. The expectation, this is a no thank you role for this person. The expectation is that on Friday your paycheck hits your bank account. If for some reason something messes up on that being sent in, like it is highly bad for lots of reasons. Like we can all understand that. But the
It's like you're speaking
expectation,
from experience here, Doogles.
don't worry about what I have or have not experienced here. But you get my point. It's basically like there's those things that happen. So what this piece was about was around process improvements in organizations and different ways that you can improve processes and whatnot. And so what this is saying was that when you get a process to a point where it then prevents things from occurring, no one gets credit for that. No one gets credit for the person behind the scenes when Batman's behind the scenes and saves the day. And so therefore you wake up in the morning and don't realize that Gotham City almost went down. You don't get credit for it. But I liked this from the perspective of thinking about ways to run teams. And there was a lot of process in here too. But when you just think about ways to run teams and ways that you can say, like, how do you either push a team just to go harder? How do you think about doing things that might be more sustainable and have less short-term outcomes, but the process itself ends up being better, so it's working smarter versus harder is like the simple way to put that. So I'll pause there, but that's what I liked about it.
That is pretty good too. There's a good line like on page 3, simply talking about some of the trade-offs that you have to balance here. And one is that when you talk about process improvement, it's not something you just buy off the shelf, plug and play, or it's not like you go hire the consultants to come in and tell you how to. Well, lots of people actually do this and it never works. Hire the consultants to come in and tell you how to fix your business, and then they ride out on their golden horse 6 months later and none of the suggestions
Oh, yeah.
stick. Like the best way to do this is to actually build it in-house and make it part of your culture. And if you do that, there are competitive advantages that can last for years, if not decades.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the way this company operates is wholly different from the way your competitor might operate.
Exactly, because it gets into the heart of the matter. It reminds me, I think I've told you this story once or twice, maybe even 3 times. Back when I was at McKinsey & Company, the consulting firm that is highly praised right now out there. It's not.
It's
really
been
not
choppy waters.
It's actually been quite bad. There, someone this is not what I was going to talk about, but someone sent me a headline this week. The headline is, "Do McKinsey and other consultants do anything useful?" But on that point though, I went to one of the partners in the firm because I'm like a self career sabotage. It's like the name of the game. I'm a terrible employee. I went to one of the partners there and I said, look, I think we can all agree that we are not helpful as consultants, but what we are very good at is being a university. It's like, this is a fantastic training ground for people learning like processes and frameworks and like the heart of business. And what if we organize our activities around the fact that we're better at teaching people how to do things than we are at consulting? What do you think the reaction was?
I've heard that story before. It's not good. It's a terrible thing to even suggest, even if it's true.
Yeah, so don't do that. Don't do that, people. The partner was not amused, is what happened there.
This reminds me of me arguing in business school with one of my professors that some businesses are not in business to make money. You should have seen his jaw drop.
It's true.
It is true. I don't want to get sidetracked on that, but it is true. There's a very small sliver of businesses that are not in business to make money. But it goes to whether it's your business school or your consulting firm, those places don't understand. They can't even fathom helping a company like that.
Yeah, so it breaks the brain. Some things just break the brain. Okay. I think this will be quick. So we've talked about iBonds before. We all know that iBonds. So actually, let me back up. I don't want to say we all know. iBonds are bonds that are provided by the United States Treasury, and they are meant to adjust according to inflation. And so if you go back a couple years when inflation in the US was ramping up, the interest rate that was paid by these iBonds also went quite high. I believe 9.62% was the rate, the highest rate that was paid. So people in the US started buying these bonds a lot. And now, with inflation having come down a bit, people are starting to cash these bonds in. And there is a chart that is showing the value of iBonds that were redeemed by investors over the last 5 years. And I knew that 2023 would have been a high redemption year, but it is mind-blowing how ridiculous this is. So basically, I can't get into the nuance of the chart because the numbers are just too close. The graphs are too close. But imagine somewhere between like about $500 million a year was the average amount of iBonds that were redeemed per year between 2019 and 2022. In 2023, it was $6.5 billion. That's a lot of iBond redemptions. And I don't know what this does for the market exactly, what this does for cash in consumers' pockets. I also don't know who necessarily was purchasing the iBonds, like what quartile of income they were, but it's fascinating.
I think you're making this more complicated than it is. I'll rail on economists a lot of times when they think that humans are just computers. But all that happened here is humans actually acted rationally for once.
Doesn't happen. That doesn't happen.
It does sometimes.
Okay.
On the show, I'm so happy. We made several listeners, we made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars of interest for people because we were talking about this early on. And yes, the going interest rate at a bank was 0 something percent. You could get 7% start, then it went all the way up to 9.6. And then the way that CPI has trended, it's back down to 3-ish. I forget because I sold my iBonds just like everyone else did, right? And
I still got some.
Really?
Yeah, April 1st is my next sale. That's when I'll be out.
There we go. But it trended in a way where it was by far the best US based safe place to put your money. And then it very quickly became where you could get 5% ish at a reputable bank, fully FDIC insured, and you were only getting 3% in iBonds. So people just acted rationally with their money. The chart's funny, but I'm actually what's the word for less than 0% surprised? Like this is just people being
underwhelmed.
Smart. So proud. It completely underwhelmed.
Oh, you didn't have to throw. I put my heart out vulnerably,
and I stepped
on it. And you stepped on it. Completely underwhelmed. Okay, that's fair. All right, how about this next one then? Let me try something else on you. So I'm reading this book right now called Subliminal. It's by the same guy that did The Drunkard's Walk. If anyone has read that one, his name is Leonard Mlodinoff, something like that. But Drunkard's Walk, Subliminal. So there's this graph in there. This book is not about stocks or investing or anything like that. It's about the subconscious. But as a part of that, there was this graph that was looking at the change in share prices for IPOs depending on the pronounceability of the name of the company. What this is showing is that if you look on the first day and the first week of a stock trading, more people the share price would go up more depending on the pronounceability of the name. And it's basically because people get all hyped up. People get all kinds of hyped up in the early days. But then it's showing that once it hits like 6 months, a year, it starts to kind of balance out because people start looking at fundamentals.
Matter, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You read this book, Rory Sutherland?
It's gold.
The surprising power of ideas that don't make sense.
No, I've not. Should
Alchemy. It's a really good book. This guy is a principal at Ogilvy in the UK, and
like the marketing,
he's the vice chairman. Yep. Okay. The world famous. And there are so many of these things. Like That is the least surprising antidote
Hold on.
for me.
Oh, okay, so the last two things
Of
I
course
brought
it
up, you,
goes
you
up.
were you were completely underwhelmed, and then I brought the least surprising.
Completely underwhelmed by that one too. And that was you. Of course it goes up. I deal with I had 2 meetings this week with businesses that are really hard to pronounce. And both the founders were like, yeah, we probably should have picked a different name. Like that stuff matters, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're trying to
When
sell someone to go to the website and you have to like spell it out every time. Like that stuff
exactly.
matters.
I've been a part in my organizations because most of my career has been in startups or early stage companies. So because of that, there's a lot of product naming, company naming type things I've been a part of. And consistently, my take is we are spending so much time and money, and a lot of times bringing in consultants to find the right name. All we have to do is not find the wrong one.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's yeah, don't make it horrible. Make a good product and you're good to go.
Exactly.
I have a hypothetical for you.
Mm-hmm.
You and your wife are both working superstars. She has a job in big oil. You have offices about 20 feet away from each other. Sometimes you vacation together, which husbands and wives do, and share a small Airbnb. And you're kind of hearing that her company might be buying a competitor and they might be paying a 70% premium for that competitor. Do you A, buy a ridiculous amount of options, call options structured with a strike date and price that will truly raise some eyebrows? B, maybe pick up a small position in the competitor's firm and, make 10K without raising any eyebrows? Or C, maybe just not trade on it. What's your move here, Doogles?
I mean, my move is C for very obvious reasons.
I'm referring to an article from the BBC about the husband of a BP employee who apparently, if this is all true, this is crazy to me, made this massive options trade without ever formally talking about the deal with his wife. So basically, he overheard conversations about BP's purchase of Travel Centers of America and then did insider trading, let's call it what it is, and made almost $2 million off his options purchase. Again, I think his options purchase here is really easy to track down because it's structured in a way that you can only make with insider trading, especially when your profits are $2 million. I think that's the thing that kind of baffles me. I completely understand the temptation of like being like, oh, I think something's gonna happen. But why do you make it so it's like a life-changing amount of money? Like, why do you do that?
Because that's the way people are. And the reason why he says he did this was so his wife didn't have to work long hours anymore. And his wife got fired for it.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I guess he succeeded. She's no longer working those long hours. There's a phrase that always sticks with me that someone said to me about 10, 15 years ago. That was people often do what's in their worst interest. And I, not intentionally, but I see this time and time again where someone's like, what I want is A. So let me go do this ridiculous thing that is going to obviously not allow A to happen, is the way that human beings often operate. That's not the logic in their brains. But I do understand a temptation for something like this, but it like that temptation should break down pretty quickly. Like it obviously can't turn out well.
No, because what he is after in this situation is a ton of money. And if he makes a ton of money, he's going to jail, right? So it doesn't really work out. That's why option C is the right answer. Because like he may have done option B and gotten away with it, and his wife is still working long hours. Like it doesn't do anything. It's
Yeah, I loved the like 2-3 weeks ago when all the Boeing stuff was really going down, and there were these threads that were, is it insider trading if I short Boeing while sitting on the plane when the door flies off?
Mhm. My answer is it's not, believe it or not, if you want
It's
to have a
not.
hypothetical conversation.
It's obviously
Yeah.
not insider trading.
Yeah.
It's like
You just
that's the
have
same as
access to
saying-
that information more
Yeah.
quickly. Like that's public information.
Exactly.
You just have
It's
access to
like
it more quickly.
it's like eating a bowl of Cheerios and being like, these are really good. I should buy the stock of General Mills. Like that's not insider trading.
Oh, it's better than that. It's like if you're on the assembly line with the new product releases and you're the first person to take a bite of that new cereal. You're like,
it could be.
this
Or
is
maybe
mind blowing.
I guess if it's on the negative side, is if you were one of the people that unfortunately were either family members or something with someone that had the Tylenol that had cyanide in it, and you shorted Johnson and Johnson stock, like that is also not insider trading.
Yeah,
I got dark real quick
real quick.
because that's probably not the first thing also coming to your mind. It's like I'm gonna go short the stock, but anyway, sorry, I probably shouldn't have gone there.
Point taken. All right. Anything else in your fishbowl?
No, I got nothing else.
All right. Well, that's a wrap, guys. Please hit Skippy and Doogles for skippyanddoogles.com for all things related to the show. We offer premium subscriptions to get the show earlier and help support the behind the scenes expenses of the show. And please share the show with a friend who likes investing or are lame at antics. Either or. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.